Thanks for tuning in to Season 4 of Strange, Rare, and Peculiar Homeopathy Podcast, where homeopathy lives, breathes, and evolves with Denise Strages and Alastair Gray. We'll be exploring modern practice, research, and philosophy, from Hahnemann's radical insights to today's breakthroughs and discoveries. Get ready for homeopathy woes, feedback from pros, and the more you knows.
Greetings, folks.
Hello.
Good morning,
Good day,
day,
afternoon,
afternoon, and good evening.
and good tea time.
And
Cheers.
by God, it's good because it is tea time.
It
Cheers
is
to you
tea
too. I'm
time.
just going to top myself up already.
Could you take out the tea so it doesn't get bitter?
Yeah.
Mm.
But first, cheers to you.
Cheers to you.
Yeah, and
And to you.
up your bum.
I'm not sure that that's a universally acceptable term.
Bottoms up.
Bottoms up, but up your bum is totally different.
Nah, it's fine. Totally fine.
It's for suppository action. No?
The suppository action.
What he's
French
doing
homeopath.
over there is taking the tea. See, now that we're on video, you can see the tea has been taken out so that it doesn't get bitter in the pot. Anyway, we're here to talk about acutes part 2.
We're not here to talk about the naughty vicar.
The naughty vicar being 50% of the tea in there.
And our key sponsor.
Not really.
Hey, we are going to continue on our journey, I believe, and discuss all things what goes into
Acutes.
the clinical decision-making relating to acute prescribing. Lead it away.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. So we had a discussion yesterday, actually, about...
We did?
Yeah, we did, with Sherry.
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about acutes part 2. And it's fun. I was a little funny about it because I just make the assumption that everybody understands this.
Well, everyone clearly understands this. They clearly don't because of the questions that we get asked. Like, what do you mean there's a process that goes into a clinical decision? I'm going to keep using that term. The choosing of a remedy is that clinical decision.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of activity that goes into making a really, really good one, which is what school is for.
But like, I guess I always like to start in defense of the home prescriber and the mom.
Let's defend the home prescriber.
Well, I think we kind of did that last time, just that everybody, because I want to make sure that for those who are kind of new turning up to homeopathy, that that there's a place for everybody, and everyone should really be well versed in sort of true acutes, first aid, self-limiting conditions. And then there is this other part of it. But like, even with that, like, I remember when my kids were little using Miranda Castro's book, did we have it
complete or Mother and Baby?
Mother and Baby.
Yeah.
Complete. And what I loved is she had her repertory in the back, and it was funny because I was already a homeopath, but.
And you would use that book?
I did, even as a homeopath. What?
Guess what?
What?
So did I.
Did you really?
Totally, all the time.
Oh my gosh.
You've got some sort of lactation issue and you just want to double check.
Miranda was like, well, and I have to say, for those of you who don't know, I am the president of the Miranda Castro fan club.
Financial director of the Miranda Castro Appreciation Society.
And Miranda knows that no one else is to take this role away from me because I love her. She is a friend of my heart. She is a sister of my heart. Anyway, but it's funny because I think about those early days of being a homeopath and just wanting, and just like, it was like I wanted her advice. I didn't know her then. I hadn't met her yet. What year did you and Miranda meet?
92. England.
Yeah, I don't remember when I
was probably, it would have been maybe my first conference, and I was looking at those people that were having fun at a conference, and I'm going to say something, folks, you might be a little shocked, but they were always outside the front door and always smoking cigarettes. And that's, I remember, I'm going to say David Mundy, Jeremy Sher, Miranda Castro, maybe Carol Boyce.
Uh-huh.
Some of those.
That is the fun crowd.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
They were the fun folks.
Total. And you know what? Still are. It's fun in different ways.
Yeah, probably. And no cigarettes.
Nobody smokes. But all that being said, I say it because like learning acute prescribing.
Stephen Gordon. You know Stephen Gordon?
I don't know him.
No, it died a couple of years back, but a really giant name back in professional English homeopathy in the 90s and the noughties, and head of the ECCH for many years. He's the guy that used to sing at conferences. Rule Sam Hahnemann, 'twas Hahnemann found the law. Simile similibus curanta. And he would sing it at the top of his voice.
Oh my gosh.
In a rich baritone.
I love it. So I think until such time, he's still with the coughing, still with your acute. And have you taken a remedy today?
Can't find it.
You can't find it. See, same as last time we recorded this.
Wait, I haven't checked these pockets.
Which is only 2 days. It's on the kitchen.
Found it.
Okay. So anyway, the reason I bring up the Miranda bit is because I don't think I got confident in acute prescribing until I worked at a clinic where I had to handle a lot of the acute prescribing.
Yeah, right.
And it was this like doing it over and over, like doing hundreds of them, that I gained confidence. And so I want to say that I wanted to out myself as, looking at Miranda's book, even as a homeopath, because I, at that point, I just hadn't gotten immersed in it. And the thing about acute prescribing, and in all defense of homeopathy education and acute prescribing, unless there are a lot of factors that have to happen in order for students to get trained in acutes, which is unless you're going to do paper cases only, which, you learn initially with that, but you need to actually do it, right? And then, so you need to have all the stars aligning. You need to have a sick person, you need to have a student, and you need to have a teacher all at the same time in the same place. And there have to be enough sick people for each student to practice under supervision, to learn the ins and the outs, but also to make those clinical decisions, as Al mentioned. Because I think this is what really hits it for me, because it's theoretical until you do it. And we had a discussion about this in class this week. So one of the things that I taught was the posology roundtable. And I can't remember because we recorded part 1 of this just 2 days ago. So if I already said this, I apologize. But the posology roundtable we do with our semester 3 students.
If you say the same thing, I'll just raise my eyebrows. And then that's our secret signal that you've done this previously.
Okay. You've heard me say this, but I don't remember if I said it here or not. Anyhow, whatever. But until you do it, it's theoretical. Like you need to practice to get the skills in order to be able to do it. And it takes a while. There are some things that are kind of easy, right? And then there are things that are difficult. And some of the things that we think are easy, like a sting, right? Most of us just think you reach for a ledum or a bus. Wait, do you say ledum or ledum? You say ledum, don't you?
Ledum.
Yeah. But you think you just reach for one of those 2 remedies and it's going to be good. But like a couple of years ago, it was quite a few years ago now, I was trail running and I got stung. Remember that on my hand?
Oh, the hornet.
The hornet. I think it was a hornet. It was big. I was trail running with the dog and I got hit. And I remember it was on my left hand because I thought to take my rings off.
You took your rings off.
My hand, by the time I got home, was so swollen and it was creeping up my arm. And it was days before, maybe 2 days. It wasn't days.
I was on a call to the integrative medicine folks in the UK, right?
I brought my hand to Liz Thompson, one of the best doctors on the planet. And I was like, excuse me, I interrupt your meeting. I was like, Liz, could you have a look at my hand? And she said, keep working on it, but she had me go to the pharmacy to get, some kind of Benadryl or something, but to put a marker on it to make sure that it wasn't still going because it was intense. And it took a while. And then you figured out a weird thing, which was that that the swelling was distal to the place of the bite. And the remedy was urtica urens.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember that?
I sure do.
But
one of my finest clinical moments.
It was actually. But it took us a while to get there because we didn't think of urtica urens because I didn't have any of the standard urtica symptoms. Like, what is the first thing you think of when if you think of like a clinical indication for urtica? What do you give it for?
Urtica, the remedy?
The remedy.
Skin eruption.
Yeah, I think
hive-like.
I think of steam burns.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, okay.
A steam burn.
Mm.
And I remember when our nanny 100 years ago got a steam burn, and I gave her urtica, and boom, it was gone, like in a second. But I think about what I know about urtica urens. And so the reason that this example feels really good to me is that I would never have thought of this thing that happened on my hand as needing urtica urens. It just didn't.
No, and what we are definitely not saying is the thought process to get to the remedy was named condition,
Yep.
remedy.
Yep.
It
didn't work.
Never. Nope. Nine Frankenstein.
Nix 9 Frankenstein.
Nix 9 Frankenstein.
Yeah. So it was because you started looking at all of these you were going through the library. You found it through Materia Medica, and you were like, look at this.
Well, can I tell you what my thought process was?
Sure.
So what I did was I did a LoCoMoCo.
Yeah, talk about it, baby. Talk about it, talk about it, talk about it.
Well, George, if you're listening, then hi there. How's Western Sydney? And so, because I believe that these days George might have dropped the last code.
George Demetriou.
George Demetriou, who creates a beautiful mnemonic for the task. The task is to find a location,
yep,
a condition. And so those two things may well be extremely obvious in the situation of a sting on a hand.
So wait, when you say condition, you're not necessarily named condition, but it could be etiology, right?
No.
Okay.
Pause, unimportant. I'm gonna give you the highbrow stuff, as opposed to the lowbrow.
The lowbrow. But
so I'm gonna go. So location.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what's the location? What's the condition? And what is the modality?
That's right. Modality being something that makes something better or worse. Is it better from heat? Is it better from pressure? From whatever.
Good. And then I'm really happy to be slightly less highbrow and add another co on the end. LoCoMoCo.
Concomitant.
The concomitant to the main complaint.
I love it.
And so that's where the reflection and the analysis, the intellectual analysis of a clinical situation comes in, because you're not thinking sting, remedy. You're thinking location. Where is it? Dispassionately. You're breathing. You're not stressed. You're not anxious. You're just going, where is it? Okay. It's on the back of the head. It's up the nose. It is on the hand. It is on the elbow. Where is it?
I mean, but in this case, the hand wouldn't have mattered.
No, it doesn't.
The location wouldn't have mattered. But if it was a mucous membrane, it might have been something totally different. Or if it was in the throat. I swallowed a bug the other day when I was walking the dog.
I think it was a stink bug.
Oh, don't say that. Ugh, gross. Sorry.
So what's the location?
Yeah.
Then what is the condition or the complaint? The main complaint. And that's where sometimes an allopathic name can be incredibly useful.
Yeah.
But it's only ever the starting point.
Yeah, totally.
So for us to just have a name complaint makes us incredibly useless.
Right.
But to have a modified complaint makes us incredibly effective.
I want to say, actually, no, I must protest.
You may not protest because
Can I have more tea? The reason that I protest is that in defense of the home prescriber, sometimes, like, because the home prescriber doesn't need to, they get Dana's book or they get Miranda's book, and they are finding the remedies for ear infections. So it's different, right? Because if you're looking at something through that lens. But you
That's
can
not what I'm saying.
right, but you can only get so far with it. Wait, you know what? Since we're talking about people, one of the most fun nights ever with homeopathy friends, Miranda and George was there. George Demetriadis.
Damn.
It was
Baltimore.
We were in Baltimore,
In a rainstorm.
2017. We'd gone out to this incredible sushi restaurant with our friends from Radar Opus, and I've never laughed so hard.
We got caught in the rain.
We were caught in this rainstorm, but we were under this scaffolding. I don't even remember what was funny, but we were literally convulsing with laughter. That was really fun. So if we're going to talk about these ways of looking at things.
Yes, because we're talking about the way in which my thought processes went.
Yeah.
And I'm only a little bit of a distance through that so far.
Oh.
So where we got distracted was Lo and then the co. And the co is most of the time important as long as it's modified. So what is the condition? A sting, a poison ivy, a migraine, or whatever it might be.
Blow to the head.
Blow to the side of the head after saying something really stupid. So, and then the mo and the LoCoMo, and then and what am I doing? I'm writing this down. I'm not. My memory shot to hell, and so on an appropriate sheet of paper or a notebook or whatever it is, then you're jotting down the features of the modified complaint. And so what is the location? What's the condition? What's the modalities? It's worse for heat. It's better for snow. It is worse for the cat licking it. It is better for eating chocolate. Whatever that modality is, write it down. That's probably the most important information. And then let's just go one further and say the concomitant to the main complaint.
I love a concomitant symptom.
Me too. And that is that what is the client doing at the same time somewhere else to the main complaint?
Yep.
And for example, another time that Denise was stung in the yard, she was running and yelling at the same time as she's been stung.
I stepped on a ground bee nest.
Concomitant to the main complaint was running, yelling, hysteria, and general distress. It could be irritability. It could be a nausea. It could be something else that's going on in a different part of the body,
right?
And secondary to the main complaint.
So that becomes a really important way of sort of fleshing out your information. So like the first step is you go to one of those books and but the downside is you either, I mean, if you're a home prescriber, you're going to have that limited amount of information. But if you're a homeopath, you need to really get comfortable with this. Some people, you talk about the LoCoMoCo. A lot of us talk about CLAMS. CLAMS. So complaint, location, etiology with an A, modalities,
sensation,
modality, sensation, right? So similar. So you're working through to understand the full complaint. So I think that this sting is a really important thing.
And that is called a complete symptom.
A complete symptom. And that is really, that's the difference, because when I had that sting, we went with the sort of stings of insects for the initial idea, and we went with what we knew as opposed to really diving in. And it wasn't until we were smart about it. Because I was laying on the couch, I was in pain,
moaning, complaining.
I just felt sick. Anyway, so and then as soon as I got the right remedy, the Urtica,
boom,
it was gone.
Yeah.
It was gone within a few hours. It was incredible. And it was a real good lesson, about
what goes on is not named condition remedy. What goes on is be calm, take the case, look for the complete symptom.
Take the case only of the acute symptoms.
The acute symptom.
Yep.
And identify the features of the complete symptom that you can. And then that's when you hit the books and continue the process. You might want to look in the repertory. You might want to look after that in your materia medica or proving manuals to find the symptom that the client's got that best matches the acute condition.
So that
individualized totality of characteristic symptoms from when she was last well.
And this
she was last well after the sting. Therefore, that's what we're looking at.
So you're looking for really a 153 sometimes.
I'm always after a 153.
Always. So a 153. Wait, can we use this as the moment to tell them what we're going to do?
No, let's just do it.
No, I really want to talk about it.
Talk about it.
Talk about it. Talk about it.
Go.
Insert your favorite disco tune. So we were thinking about how, a lot of times we'll read from the Organon and everything, or we're trying to get people to, part of, especially this season, we're talking about truth, and we're trying to get people to see homeopathy for what it is and not the made up homeopathy that is never going to be as effective as the real thing. And so, we came up with this idea where we will be reading we'll be reading an aphorism, but in a way that is, I think it's going to be really fun. So for those of you who may have seen this, there's a YouTube channel, a podcast actually, called Fashion Neurosis. And this woman who's is Bella Freud. She's this incredible interviewer. But she does it in this way that is really sort of evocative. And so we're going to do kind of a play on that with aphorisms. I'm super excited about it. But in the meantime, aphorism 153, which is the strange, rare, and peculiar. In other words...
Now, because you are going to be reading the footnote to the other one, I'm going to read 153.
Okay, you could read 153.
All right. You ready? 153. In the search for the homeopathically specific remedy, that is, in the comparison of the complex of the natural diseases signs with the symptom sets of the available medicines, in order to find among them an artificial disease potence that corresponds in similarity to the malady being cured, the more striking, exceptional, unusual, and odd characteristic signs and symptoms of the disease case are to be especially and almost solely kept in view. These, above all, must correspond to the very similar ones in the symptoms set of the medicine sought, if it is to be the most fitting one for the cure in the case. The more common and indeterminate symptoms, lack of appetite, headache, lassitude, restless sleep, discomfort, are to be seen within almost every disease, which are just be seen in almost every disease and medicine, and thus deserve little attention for us unless they are more closely characterized. Full stop. That's 153.
Yeah. And the reason why that's important is because in this case, if we're just looking at sort of how, if you're looking at a book that's just showing you sort of the most common remedies for a particular complaint, you may not have the SRP, right? So in this case, I would never have thought of urtica urens as being the right remedy for a hornet bite.
Nope.
It didn't even occur to me. And I'm sure a sting. But like, there was that SRP, the distal, that the swelling was distal only to the place of the complaint.
It was strange, odd, and characteristic, just a little like this podcast.
So like if I had needed Leadum, one of the cases that I will often talk about was Laura's son Joe when he was little. So this was a kid who lived across the street from me, and the moms were on the phone while making dinner. Phone was still attached to the wall then, and he had stepped on a bee, and so I said, oh, we'll give him some Apis. I'm cooking, she's cooking. I didn't get a lot of symptoms. And so one of the kids runs it across the street, looks both ways, takes the remedy. The next morning I get a call. He's no better. What? He's no better? Did you repeat it? Yeah. And so his dad brings him over, and he's sitting there on my porch. And I said, tell me about, this thing on your foot. How's it feel? Is it hot? Is it cold? It was cold. And I touched it and it was cold. I was like, duh, he needed Leadum, not Apis. Apis would have been hot. And so there's that SRP, or a characteristic or striking symptom. And so that becomes really important. And sometimes that's what leads you there, and you wind up with a remedy that might not be one of the ones that you think about. So, and remember, we talked about this the last time. What are you looking at out there?
I don't know. The tree's going crazy.
It's called wind.
No, it's not.
Oh,
there's something in it.
Oh, anyway, but remember that you're only looking at the acute symptoms, not the symptoms from when the person was last.
Forget about the beige common symptoms.
Yeah.
I'm tired. My headache.
Didn't we talk about
It's like, what's weird? What's crazy? What have you never heard about before? What's characteristic?
I think we talked about this last week, Aphorism 6, which is the unprejudiced observer only perceives the deviations from the former healthy state of the new sick patient. And so that's in general
properly with an appropriate amount of drum roll, and we're going to add it and cut it. So you're going to now read Aphorism 6.
The whole thing?
Why not?
No, because I have another thing to read. I don't want to read too much. We'll just leave it as it is. But this idea that you're only working with the state of the disease. And this is important because people get confused about like homeopathy. They'll say, oh, homeopathy, it works for the whole person. And then they take into account like their personality and all this stuff. No, it's the state of the disease, which affects the entirety of the individual, mind, body, spirit. That's where that differential comes in. So when you see those, like, I was going to use a Facebook example, but I can't because it makes me gag.
Don't do it.
I'll skip it. Okay. Anyway, meantime, so when you're working with something acutely, like the acutes can be simple, but sometimes not. And that's the thing. And that's when, you can call homeopathy help now. Or, work with your homeopath, because I think it's really important though to make sure that the whole thing is being looked at. And I think we talked about this the last time, that there's this difference between something that's acute and something that's chronic, and the idea of how we approach the problem, right? And so one of the things that happens, so in the homeopathy world, I'm going to say something that's slightly naughty. I'm looking for absolution from you. No?
I have no idea what you're going to say.
Okay. So there's homeopathy, right? And it's a thing. Yeah. And it has its laws, and there's a way that when you do the work and you learn to be a homeopath, you can be successful in dealing with an acute thing or a chronic thing. Do you always get it on the first try? No, because sometimes you forget to ask the question, or it's a slightly obscure thing that you have to really look into, and fair enough. But then there are people that have kind of started their own form of homeopathy. And we've talked a lot about this over the last bit of time, but, basically people are saying homeopathy doesn't work in the classical sense. And therefore they've had to go to protocols and do other stuff. Now, I mean, to me, if I'm going to give somebody money to train me to do something, I don't want it to be the person who couldn't figure out how to do it and had to come up with a cheap substitute, right? I mean, I think that's because there is a way to do it. You just have to put the time in. So I just, in support of that statement, and
I grant you absolution.
Thank you. Because I don't like to speak ill, but I'm worried. I'm really worried about what's happening in the community. Well, I'm worried about what's happening in the world where homeopathy is.
Read the aphorism, crying out loud.
So in
your finest Jersey accent.
So we've mentioned this footnote. This is one of our favorite footnotes.
Well, read the aphorism as well.
Yeah, but the aphorism, that's a lot. I don't think but basically Hahnemann's talking about how the fittingly selected homeopathic medicine, when it is properly employed, the acute natural disease that is to be overtuned passes away unnoticed. If it arose shortly beforehand, it often passes away in a few hours. A somewhat older natural disease, likewise along with all traces of indisposition, passes away somewhat later after application of a few more doses of the same, more highly potentized medicine, or after the careful selection of one or another still more similar homeopathic medicine. In other words, it's going to take a little bit. The sooner it came, if it just arrived, it'll be gone fast. If it's been around for a while, then it'll take a little longer. And it might be that it's gone with one remedy, but you might need to follow it up with another or another remedy, just like happened with this thing. Okay. So then the footnote. So this is a footnote to Aphorism 148. And it's in my top 5 favorite footnotes. He says, the search for the remedy that is homeopathically the most suitable in all regards for a given disease state is a laborious, occasionally a very laborious pursuit.
Laborious.
You got to work at it, people.
Involving labor.
There you go.
With a U or without a U, it doesn't matter.
While there are praiseworthy books for facilitating this process, i.e. repertories of materia medica, it is still necessary to study the sources themselves, i.e. reports of provings. So in other words, if there's a remedy that doesn't have a proving, then you got to think twice about whether or not we have the information that we need to be able to prescribe it. So as we might have mentioned around here before, if you're taking a whole bunch of SAR codes, guess what? There ain't provings for those. There's not even any inkling within the field of homeopathy, within the philosophy of homeopathy, that the use of these remedies is appropriate. But that's a story for another day. Okay.
Pray continue.
Many-sided circumspection and serious consideration is also required. Students will recognize this. I talk about turning the prism, right? Turning the prism to look at the problem from different ways. The best reward for this is the awareness of a duty truly fulfilled. How could this laborious, painstaking work, which alone produces the best possible cure of diseases, suit those gentlemen of the new mongrel sect who vaunt the honorable title of homeopath and who, for show, give out medicines that are homeopathic in form and appearance, but which they only lay hold of in a perfunctory way? When the exact means does not immediately help, they lay the blame for it on homeopathy instead of on their inexcusable indolence and fecklessness in dealing with the most important and most critical of human affairs.
And fecklessness. Indolence and fecklessness. They continue.
They accuse homeopathy. Wait, this is the part.
This
is the part I love. They accuse homeopathy of being very imperfect when in fact, the problem is that the most appropriate homeopathic remedy for each disease state does not spontaneously fly into their mouths like roasted pigeons. Without any effort on their part! Exclamation.
It's laborious with a U or without a U. And it doesn't just emerge like a pigeon flying off a plate.
That's
down
right.
The gullet.
Okay. So basically, that was a different cat than the one you're used to seeing. That's not Hildegard of Bingen.
That was Isaac Newton.
Sir Isaac Newton.
Pray continue.
So, I mean, he basically goes on to say...
I want to hear about the toadies.
Oh, right, the toadies. Sorry. Being the adroit people that they are, they know how to quickly console themselves about the inefficacy of their scarcely half homeopathic means by bringing to bear the allopathic toadies, which are more familiar to them. Yeah. So in other words, what he's saying is, it takes a bit of work. Learn to do the work.
Labor.
And these folks that are out there that are saying homeopathy doesn't work, therefore they had to create their own system based on allopathic ideas. In other words, give you a named condition and then 15 million remedies that you use for it. That ain't homeopathy.
See, it's really interesting because that was clearly going on during Hahnemann's time.
Yeah.
He called them mongrels and toadies.
I would not do such a thing.
No. I'm just someone said once.
Sure, it has been said.
Yeah. But and that's his response.
Yeah.
And it's a good one as well. Because this is not always easy. It is always perfect. But are we perfect enough to be able to do it?
You got to work hard.
Got to work.
And so for example, like people talk about like acute prescribing, you just, you take a weekend seminar. You can learn to do very basic foundational acutes and home prescribing in just a few hours. You can. Everybody should know how to use arnica, 8-bis, ledum, and so forth, right? It's just that. But once you get past that, then it's sort of exponential. So for example, in acute prescribing, so I teach 4 sessions on the introduction to acute prescribing. And the reason it takes, 4 sessions, that's 6 hours. So 4 90-minute sessions. And that's not about remedy. It's no remedy. It's not how to do it. It's basically looking at acute and chronic to really understand the context.
And each component of the process
Yep.
of working your way through a problem.
Yep.
And the way that we deal with problems is unique to us, and
Yep.
it is not reductionistic or allopathic or conventional or any of those things.
And it's hard. And I think because in homeopathy schools, up until recently, there was no acute training on real people. I mean, it was like impossible to do, especially when it was in person 1 weekend a month. I mean, that was what went on for years. And we introduced our acute clinical training internship after we built the infrastructure during COVID. So like at AHE, our students are required to go through and to do multiple acutes. And I will say, for those of you who are homeopaths and you maybe didn't have a lot of practice with acutes, getting practice with acutes, like getting really good at it, it impacts your chronic practice and it impacts your sort of facility with posology. Like we did a little review of kind of our best graduates, and inevitably they had taken the most acute cases during their internship, right? Like Danielle, who works with me.
1 million.
She's had 1 million. And so what she got really good at was what I would call clinical decision making, because an acute, when you're treating an acute, it's a microcosm of a chronic, because you have to do all the things. You've got to understand what the totality of the disease is, and then from there you are prioritizing your symptoms. You're looking at, you're differentiating remedies, and this is the most important thing, you're watching the response. And we've been talking a lot about this part of homeopathy recently, because if you listen to episodes before, we talked about sort of this trend in throwing all the potencies in together and giving multiple remedies. There's no way to know what worked or didn't work, or what caused an aggravation or didn't. I mean, there's just no way to do it.
Or what to do next.
Yeah. So you can't determine what to do next. And as Hahnemann says in 153, about how you then assess the case to see what to do next. Where?
It's not 153.
No. Where was that? I mean, it's in 171. What else did we? I know, but no, something that we read today.
Oh, you were looking at 72.
Oh, that was before. I was looking at 72.
But we've not read it yet.
No, I think we read it last time. I think we talked about it last time. Anywho.
But this is the brave new world of reading aphorisms.
But no, that's going to be a separate thing. That's not this. The reading aphorisms, we're going to do those are going to be separate podcasts. Smaller, bite-sized ones in between.
9.
Yeah. Don't tell me 9. I'll give you 9.
Yeah.
Anyway, so when it comes to working on acute things, right? So there are like a few different things that have to happen. You've got to take the case. You have to understand what symptoms you're trying to get. And in order to do that, it's important to understand kind of the medical part of it. So if you're working with a person who has a sore throat, there's a benign sore throat, and then there are really dangerous situations like a peritonsillar abscess or epiglottitis. Like there are things that can really be problematic. So while the sort of professional homeopathy, the landscape of professional homeopathy includes people with all different backgrounds, I think it's also important to kind of know our limits, right? And not be prescribing for things that are above one's pay grade. For example,
learn your medical science.
You have to. I mean, you have to.
You have to.
And one of the things that we're working on, we've got this project that we call Building a Better Homeopath. And it is it's an ongoing conversation about what does one really need to understand. Like until such time as there is a medical school for homeopaths that gives all of the training necessary such that homeopaths are accepted into the medical profession for what they do, we need to demonstrate how that is done. I feel like
notwithstanding India, which of course that exists.
Yeah, I mean, it does. And what about South Africa also, right?
Master's program, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But do they have clinical, like hands-on clinical training there? They do,
Yep.
right? Yeah. So, I mean, there are places where that, where that exists, but until we get that in America, we're trying to really raise that bar. And I think for people who are listening who don't really have sort of the inside perspective on, like what do homeopaths need to know? There are definitely people who are practicing homeopathy who haven't had that exposure to the risks. I mean,
the things to be wary of,
right? How to stay in our lane,
yeah,
right? So we're
signs and symptoms to be, wary
totally,
of. Yeah,
like we've done, like one of the things that we've done is we have like these red flag manuals that are in addition to, like at AHE when you're doing your acute training, you've got, well, in everything, you've got your medical sciences, then it's backed up with the therapeutics curriculum where you're learning, through the lens of a named condition, all the ways to do it. And then, you've got all of your case management and red flags and stuff. And this is actually a good opportunity. Sorry, this is not a planned part of the discussion, but if you're a homeopath and you didn't have acute training, like we can help. Sorry, this wasn't meant to be like a salesy thing, but because it has been a difficult thing for homeopathy educators to sort of make happen. We've got, we have pathways so people can come and take that coursework with us. Anyway, if you're interested, let us know. But so when you're doing an acute though, you've taken the case, you understand the medical condition, all the things around it, and then you're going to the repertory. Then, that there is also the practice of doing acutes is around, you're learning how to prioritize symptoms, but you're also, because you're getting comfortable with the materials, you start to know what symptoms are going to be a good value because there's good documentation for those symptoms. So sometimes you might have a client puts out a great symptom, but there's nothing to go on in the repertory, right?
Like what? Give an example.
Oh, did you hear that?
I felt it.
That was a crack in my hip.
I had a client once who had a symptom, a nervous system pain on the top of my head, as if my head has been scraped by gravel.
Is that in the repertory?
Nope.
I mean, so then, then you start doing the translation of the repertory language, right? One of the students recently said, can AHE put out like the equivalent of a decoder ring to translate the repertory into contemporary language? Now, some people would say Murphy's clinical repertory does that, but it's a totally different perspective. Yeah. With all due respect to our dear
David Salt is probably the closest one to that blue book. That one up there, the light blue book.
Oh, I don't know that one.
That's the translation of the mind.
Oh, that
symptoms.
Yeah.
That's the closest into plain English, but that's Kent's repertory, not the
right.
Not any.
And to quote Jeremy Sherry, says the mind is a minefield. I mean, that's like a whole other thing when you start getting into. Maybe we'll talk about this next time because I'm teaching Aphorisms 210 to 230 next week, which is mental and emotional disease and one-sided diseases, which is really applicable to understand.
You're teaching one-sided diseases?
No, well, I'm teaching it. It's just where it comes up in 210 to 230.
Oh.
Yeah. But that's really important for pans and pandas. So we'll talk a little bit about that next week. But anyway, so this translation of symptoms into the repertory, and then there is the way in which a good homeopath understands, and this comes with practice. It's like you need to do it to start to recognize what a well-balanced repertorization looks like. In other words, the repertory being the index of symptoms. It's not perfect. It was written, over the course of 150 years by a gazillion people that didn't agree on everything. Some of the rubrics have a combination of acute and chronic stuff in there. I mean, it's just, so you've got to understand how to parse that out. And then when you look at the results, I know a lot of people will say, oh, that's the top in the repertorization. In other words, the remedy that comes up first. That doesn't mean anything. You have to understand how to take it to the next step so that you can look at the remedies in comparison to one another. But then there's even another step, right?
What step?
So it's one thing when you're just taking an acute case for a person that you aren't working with chronically. And we talked about this last week because we talked about the kid, the Drosera. I don't know if I told the remedy, but
yeah,
whatever.
you did.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but that case of suppression from what was perceived to have been a case of whooping cough, which it turns out wasn't. But when you know your client, you then can look at the remedies that come up in a repertorization, an acute repertorization, and it will make sense as to which remedies would be appropriate based on your understanding of the chronic picture. So that's a really big deal, because there are remedies that are complementary to one another, remedies that are considered inimical to one another. There are remedies that are more superficial, or remedies that are really deep. There are remedies that are fast, remedies that are slow. There's a way that you can consider kingdoms, which we won't talk about today, but like there's a lot to take into account. So if we kind of look at it in the totality of what we talked about today, it's like there's acutes can be super simple or not. And the more knowledge you have, the greater the likelihood that you're going to get the result that you need. And to really do the job is to understand all of the components that go into it. Otherwise, we run the risk of, this footnote to 148, where, we're not getting good results and we're blaming it on homeopathy and saying, oh, I need to become a protocol prescriber.
And then the roasted pigeons will flow into my mouth.
Right. And what's really going to flow out of your mouth is giving money to people who are selling you this and all the remedies that you or your clients are taking, when in reality, the single remedy, the elegant prescribing, it's just you learn to do it, and the results are incredible and long lasting. And again, not opinion, because we are measuring our outcomes, right? So every case that comes through our practices, but also AHE's clinic, the supervision, any students that are under supervision, we're measuring them and we're using a validated tool. And the validated tool is, we're using an instrument that allows us to publish these results in peer-reviewed journals, right? So what we have is the proof is in the pudding. So, between 84 point something and 86 point something results of these cases moving in a positive direction. Yeah. And that's using this, the model of homeopathy is set forth by Hahnemann. So it's like, it's worth it. Take the time to learn to do it, as opposed to saying, oh no, I have to do it a different way. I have to learn from someone who couldn't figure out how to do this and says it doesn't work. Hahnemann says in Aphorism 148, in the footnote to 148, that's, that's where the repeating the remedy, it's in 148. Yeah. Anyway, Hahnemann says, for the person, these people who are not getting good results with prescribing homeopathy as according to, the master over here, he says they accuse homeopathy of being very imperfect, when in fact, the problem is that the most appropriate homeopathic remedy for each disease does not spontaneously fly into their mouths like roasted pigeons without any effort on their part. Right. So what we're suggesting is that, you can just get a manual that says give 3 things for each named condition and repeat it until the vital force finally shuts up in sadness and with a reduced level of vitality, or,
do the work.
Yeah. And it's fun. I mean, it's like, it's not, anyway, so that's acutes. So we mentioned a couple of things today, and I think we'll probably wrap this up. But a couple things just going forward. So look for the new aphorism thing. I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to be fun if we can pull it off. But the other thing is a couple of upcoming episodes. So one of them, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about kind of neurodivergence, and we're going to talk about the sort of new challenging conditions that are facing our pediatric populations, and the importance of really finely tuned homeopathy in solving those cases, or at least supporting those cases as far as we can into whatever level of healing is available. That's one thing coming up. And then the other thing is we're going to talk about research in a bit, because there's a conversation that we've been having in our research office, but also in our team meetings about, like, there's research, and then there's research, and there are people who will tell you that they are doing research. And while this topic might seem a little bit in the weeds for some of us, I think it's important. It's an important discussion to be had about some of the things that are really key. Like, for example, ethics approval, right? Having an IRB, making sure that anytime someone is introducing something into the canon of homeopathy, that it is well researched and documented as to its safety and efficacy, especially when it comes to things like working with nosodes, which are remedies that are made from diseased products. They're, having, or even SAR codes, for example. I used that example earlier. This has become this is like a big thing, that people are giving these remedies that are prepared according to, the methodology, but using substances for which there is no evidence of their use when they are prepared in this way. So, things like any kind of bodily tissue, any sort of, bodily fluid, so anything from a healthy body. I saw somebody is giving testicle in potency. Like, what does that even mean? Right? Like, so there are ways in which the marketing of these products, things are going to market without the real evaluation about what they are and what is their place in this system. Maybe they just it needs to be called something else, right? Because homeopathy as its own thing doesn't have the evidence for that. Anyway, so we're going to talk about research, and that's going to be, I think, in a couple of episodes, but just to sort of get that conversation happening. And so with that, as we close, obviously subscribe, please. Tell your friends, and the conversation, if you follow us on social media, so Instagram and Facebook, the Institute for the Advancement of Homeopathy, the Academy of Homeopathy Education, Homeopathy Help Now, and this is a place for these conversations to happen. We can engage with that. Glad to see you taking your remedy with your cough. Thank you. Anyway, but we want to really, we really want to engage in these conversations. The ways in which the algorithms work. Unfortunately, some of the conversations where people are giving medical advice in online spaces they get a lot of traction, and we're really just working hard to make sure that we can protect homeopathy for what it is, how we know it to be safe and effective, and because of the quantity of people that come through our clinic, we've seen like over 7,000 acute cases in the last almost 6 years. And at any given time, we have about 2,000 cases going through our chronic clinical setup. We're looking at these cases, and we are seeing trends happening with people who come from having taken too many remedies, or who are using homeopathy in ways that are really far off script. So we want to we want to get that message out there. And then the last thing is that we've been putting out a request for people to participate in a phenomenological study that we're doing, and it's focus group. They're small group based, and it's to understand how, because I think it's a really important and fair question to say, because I'm saying this in response to everything I just said, which is about, we want homeopathy to be safe and effective. If people are getting good results from other ways of using homeopathy, it is also important for us to understand that. So that's why we're putting it out there, and we haven't gotten as many people from the other corners of homeopathy to participate, ostensibly because we have a reputation for, I guess a fairly clear Hahnemannian perspective, but research is research, right? So you don't engage in research with an anticipated outcome. You go in asking a question, and you have to be, that's right.
Well, yeah. Can I weigh in?
Please do.
Yeah. So it's not as if you go in with a question. That's absolutely a part of research, but sometimes there's a pre-process,
Exactly.
which is you have a qualitative phase whereby you gather information in order to ask the questions, or to even think about or know what the questions might be. And that's really, really important. So what Denise is talking about is a question looking at other ways of prescribing that are non-Hahnemannian. We're not talking about Kingdom or Sankaran or Mangalavori or Shulton or anything like that. What we're talking about is, because we don't know what the consequences are, let's gather information. And so if you've had the experience of using homeopathy in ways that are different from what Denise and I are generally talking about, single remedy, totality of symptoms, similars, minimum dose, then
Yep.
let's gather that information. Come and join a focus group. So contact, it's going to be hello@homefoundation.org.
Mm-hmm.
Hello@homefoundation.
That's HOHM foundation.org.
And register your interest, and then you'll participate in a focus group, so a guided conversation, gathering information, and then from that information we'll go from there, and then start asking questions. But if we find that there's nothing to talk about, then we'll go and ask different questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just, so this is the entry point, a phenomenological study to begin a conversation
What's
about
going on.
what's going on in the profession. So we don't have an outcome in mind. We're just asking the information. And that's the thing about when you've got an ethics board, right? They're overseeing, if you're doing a study, what question are you asking? How? What is the methodology? And so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's it. Thanks, everybody. Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
See you later.
See you later.
Ciao, folks. Take care.
Are you suffering from an acute illness and need relief? Welcome to Homeopathy Help Now, your virtual clinic for accessible homeopathy care right from home. From flu symptoms to stomach bugs, minor injuries to surgery support, we provide natural and effective solutions for acute health concerns. You can meet with a homeopath online and receive personalized acute care safely and conveniently. Homeopathy works with your body to restore balance quickly and gently. Book your session today at homeopathyhelpnow.com.